Hi everybody and welcome to another piano video here on the Merriam Pianos YouTube channel. Today we are tackling the most frequently asked questions, that is according to Google, related to Casio's PX-S1100. This is a very popular, very recent 88-note weighted digital portable piano. And we get bombarded with questions all the time, both on the channel, here in the stores, emails, personal friend questions, you name it. So we've lined up most of the questions that have come in, and we are going to knock them off in order of popularity. If it's the first time that you are joining us here on YouTube, we would really appreciate if you hit that subscribe and notification bell so that you can come back and be a regular viewer or commenter. We'd love to have you be a part of our ever-growing community of piano lovers from all around the world. So without further ado, let's jump right into today's video on FAQs related to Casio's PX-S1100. Right away. So the very first question and most often asked question, the most frequently asked question is, does the Casio PX-S1100 have weighted keys? Yes, it does. It uses an action called smart scaled action. It is a dual sensor action. It is a highly compressed action. And so one of the things that's really caused a lot of controversy, if we want to elevate it to that word, is because the keys are so short that depending on where you measure the key, you're going to get very different weighting. And so what Casio has done is looked at an average piano player and where they actually press the key. So that's going to be like, I don't know, maybe a couple of centimeters in from the front of a white key and really close to the front of a black key, and essentially scaled the key action so that it feels proper and the weighting is proper at those particular points. But it's so easy to measure keys on this instrument at any other point and get some pretty wild readings, and of course that's sparked a lot of debate amongst some of the reviewers online. But for players, particularly ones who already know Casio, enjoy the feel, or people who are new to the scene, this keyboard feels great, and it's behaved well, and it's been really durable. There's been very, very low reporting of any type of physical or mechanical failure of this action, and most people who have owned this piano have really enjoyed it. So that was the long way of saying, yes, this instrument does have weighted action. It is a smart scaled action from Casio. It's a dual sensor, and particularly if you already know Casio or if you're kind of new to the piano world, I think you're really going to enjoy it. Does the PX-S1100 come with a music rest? As you can see, yes it does. Right out of the box, it is not an extra accessory you need to order. Fits easily right in, and it's very easy to remove as well for transport. So does the PX-S1100 Privia have MIDI? Yes, and there's two ways that you can connect the MIDI to a device. You can certainly connect it to a computer using a USB connection, and it's going to come in there just as a generic USB MIDI driver. So you can use it as a controller or any kind of MIDI input device. But you can also connect it with Bluetooth wireless to a mobile device. It's very easy to actually use the Bluetooth as a connection on the PX-S1100. You need to make sure, first of all, that the dongle is plugged into the USB port on the back that comes with this. Then the next thing you're going to do is you are going to press the function button and then press the lowest C sharp on the instrument, and that is actually going to turn on the Bluetooth radio. You're going to know that it's turned on because you're going to see a blinking blue light come on as soon as you do this, and that essentially puts the instrument into pairing mode. At that point, you're going to have two connections to choose from. You are going to have the Bluetooth audio connection that you can elect to connect, and that's going to allow you to stream audio information from a mobile device to this instrument. Or you will have the MIDI connection, which is going to be useful if you're going to connect this to the Chordana app, which I would highly recommend. The Chordana app has so much to give, actually. It's one of the best featured free accompanying apps of any of the manufacturers, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Either way, that is how you enable the Bluetooth, and then you can, depending on what you're wanting to do with it, either select the audio connection that's going to show up in your Bluetooth list, or the MIDI connection that's going to show up in your Bluetooth list, or the connection wizard that's often part of a lot of those Bluetooth MIDI enabled apps. Can you record on the PX-S1100? Yes, you can. It has a fairly limited onboard recorder. I would definitely recommend, though, that if you are connecting this to a computer or a mobile device, that you use the computer or the mobile device as the way in which you capture either MIDI, or you can also capture it using the 1/4-inch outputs, because just like the Yamaha P125 and the Kawai ES110, the Casio PX-S1100 has discrete 1/4-inch outputs, which is really great. So you can either capture audio into a USB audio interface, or you can stream MIDI into a computer or device, and then within the computer or the device, you're going to connect some type of a sound source like a VST piano plugin. Does the Casio PX-S1100 have Bluetooth? Well, we've answered it several times in other questions. Yes, it does, with an asterisk. The PX-S1000, which was its predecessor, didn't. And without the dongle, the 1100 doesn't either. Essentially what they've done is they've created a dongle and then updated the operating system within the 1000 so that the dongle automatically connects properly with the OS or the operating environment of the 1100. So you don't have to really go in and do any more enabling. It's just there. But if you pull that dongle out, no Bluetooth. So that does need to be in there. But provided that it's in there, and it does come in the box, then yes, you get both Bluetooth audio, which is awesome, as well as Bluetooth MIDI. So what is the newest Casio Privia? Well, if we're talking about the PX-S series, the 1100 and the 3100 are both virtually brand new. They've both been out for less than a year. 3100 could be considered slightly newer because it was released a few months after the 1100, but they're both of the same generation, and they are both updates to the 1000 and the 3000. So can you use a Casio, this one specifically, or any Casio as a MIDI controller? Well, as long as it's got a USB MIDI port, which this one does and most of the other Casios do, yes, you can use it as a MIDI controller. You don't really need much to be able to use a device as a MIDI controller. It really depends on the kind of control surfaces or control functionality you want. The most basic, of course, is that you've got key input information and usually pedal information, which this one certainly does. And that's going to transmit by default into any DAW environment on your computer with very little setting or adjustment. There are other instruments out there that have a multitude of other assignable control surfaces to the top, which this one does not. You kind of get into a little bit of that with the PX-S3100. It's got 2 assignable knobs, as well as a few other like modulation wheels. So like there's a few assignable things that you could do with 3100 that you really don't have on here. But in its most basic sense, yes, you could hook this into a computer, use this to trigger virtual instruments or record MIDI into a computer and essentially fulfill the most basic role of a MIDI controller, which is MIDI input. There you go. So next one, how do you connect your Bluetooth headset to your Casio PX-S1100? Well, if you are seeing this answer for the first time, I'm so sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but you can't. In fact, you can't with any digital piano at this point. I'm sure it's going to come sooner than later, that the Bluetooth version or the Bluetooth technology will advance to eliminate the lag that still exists with a lot of those Bluetooth audio connections. But at this point, Bluetooth audio in real time is not great. There's still a pretty substantial lag. And in most applications, like talking over the phone to somebody else, or connecting to a TV or a computer to watch something, your device automatically syncs that, so it gets rid of it. But when you've got something real time, like pressing the key down and expecting to hear it instantly, not 25 milliseconds after, but instantly, that's where Bluetooth is still really not great. And so at this point, no manufacturer offers an outbound Bluetooth audio connection, just the way it is. So this next question is great. What is the Chordana app? Because I already mentioned it earlier in the video. I think Casio has offered one of the most fully functional and useful applications from any of the manufacturers in terms of its accompanying app. So the Chordana app, which I'm going to get up here and actually show. So the Chordana app is one of the best accompanying apps from any of the manufacturers, I really have to say. So if you go into Chordana for piano, you get these 6 icons, and I know we've got the screen recording of this in the corner of the screen right now as well. So you've got the piano remote controller, which gives you the option to save presets on the app, so you can, every time you load it, you can push those presets through to the piano, or you can load it from the piano. So send piano from the app, okay. And now we're going to be able to access all the various sounds and settings that you would usually have to use shortcut keys or just the onboard controls for. And look at the huge number of options that we now have. You've got a MIDI recorder directly in the Chordana app. You get built-in songs. You have effects, which is where you can turn on your various hall simulators. Stadium, so lots of fun there. You've got various surround modes you can access, chorus modes, and of course you can control the hull depth simulator, the brilliance, all of that. You also have MIDI files that you can plug in and play. You have settings for the pedals, the acoustic simulator, the keyboard tone source, and you can select all of the various tones available on the instrument. This is also where you can activate layer or split, and it's remarkably stable. That's just the piano remote controller. If we go back to the main menu in the Chordana, this is where you can also get PDF score viewer, which is super handy, as well. Now, on a small device like this, not sure that's going to be like incredibly useful, but it does allow you to access onboard PDFs that you've saved to your phone. So you actually can get in there and pull up your own PDF scores, which is crazy. No other app does this. Another really useful one, particularly when used in concert with the Bluetooth audio, is the music player, because it accesses your onboard music player software. So this is an iOS, so it's accessing the music, or formerly known as iTunes. And if we just go into, let's say something with, and I've pulled up a Heather Bambick track, who happens to be a favorite jazz performer here in Canada. This now gives you some of the most common and useful editing for playing around, for transcribing. If you're a vocalist and you've got accompaniment tracks, this is great. So you've got the option.
We're heading across the river, wash your sins way in the tide.
So it's got a cancel melody on it. Or you've got a accompaniment defeat on it. But then you've got a great transposition. You can also slow it down. All in a free app. So I've been incredibly impressed with that app to the point where anybody picking up the Casio shouldn't really think about that app as being optional. This is how you should enjoy this instrument. It makes it so easy to access the huge level of functionality, which otherwise kind of remains fairly buried under this overly simplified user interface on the instrument itself. So that's what the Chordana app is all about. And if you're a PX-S1100 user already and you haven't accessed the powerful tools that are in there, do it. Next question, where are Casio pianos made? They are manufactured in China. They are designed in Japan. Many manufacturers have different manufacturing sites throughout Asia. They're all in Asia. Roland manufactures in Malaysia and some in China. Kawai manufactures mostly in Indonesia and some in China. Japan or Yamaha kind of splits it. I'm not exactly sure what the percentage is, but a pretty high chunk coming both out of China and Indonesia. Korg is largely, I believe, Chinese, with maybe only the very, very highest end. Some of the components still happening in Japan. So it's a total mix, but Casio, to answer specifically, manufactured in China and designed in Japan. So last question, which Casio keyboard is best for beginners? Now Casio has a huge range of under 88 note keyboards and 88 notes, some of which are semi-weighted. So I guess it really depends on who the beginner is, the age, and what path they're going to want to be on. For people who are getting into quote-unquote piano lessons and going down either a classical road or you see yourself eventually winding up as an acoustic piano player, then starting with 88 note weighted keyboards or pianos is pretty important because that kind of sets the foundation for what your finger now considers a key to be and how heavy it should be, and training it how to really control it. For people who don't see themselves going down a path that's necessarily that formal, or acoustics just are never going to be in your future, there are a number of the other like CT series from Casio that are in the $200, $300, $400 range, 76 notes, 61 notes, everything that's kind of around there, where weighting isn't necessarily as important. But if, let's say, you are a prospective student and you really are thinking about piano, like piano, or a parent and you're going to be connecting, a younger child with lessons, weighted 88 note is really important. And if that's the path, then this piano is a really good option. They make a PX-770 and a PX-870, which is also part of the Privia line. Those are not portable, and they're a little more permanent with their stands. But in terms of a portable unit that's going to be really affordable with a huge range of features that are going to be fun and useful, the 1100 is great. It's, as I said, particularly with in terms of the action for people who are already familiar with Casio or have no frame of reference, this is definitely going to do the trick for the first few years of learning. And it's a nice blend of everything, both the piano features, but as well as the more engaging non-piano features like those audio add-ins and the ability to pull in PDF sheet music. All that stuff is really pretty cool.